Welcome back to PSC's Tech Bytes. This week we will see how to use the SharePoint Framework 1.6 to consume the Microsoft Graph APIs. In fact, starting from 1.6 version of the SharePoint Framework, you can consume any API secured in Azure AD. So the Microsoft Graph or any third API registered in Azure AD, like for example an ASP.NET API, an Azure Function, or any other solution developed with any development platform as long as you register it in Azure AD. And this opens really great scenarios because you can create solutions that will leverage the whole offering of Microsoft and Office 365 through the Microsoft Graph, or you can create line of business integration solutions hosted in SharePoint Online, and more in general, you will have a great power in your hands developing a solution with SharePoint Framework. In order to do that, there are some main steps that you need to accomplish. First of all, you will need to create a SharePoint Framework 1.6 solution, or you can upgrade an already existing one based on an older version of SharePoint Framework. And in order to see how to upgrade it, you can even follow the episode number 28 of this video series of Tech Bytes. Moreover, once you have created a solution, you will have to create an instance of a Graph SDK client using a factory object that is provided through the context of the SharePoint Framework client-side web path and extensions. And then you will have to leverage the Graph SDK through its Fluent API, which will allow you to consume the target Graph endpoint. Once you have done that, you will have to declare in the package solution.json file of your SharePoint Framework project the API permissions that you need to run your request. And once you have done that, you can provision the sppkg file of your solution in the app catalog of your tenant, and with an admin account, you will be able, using the new SharePoint Online Admin Center, to to approve those permission requests to make it possible for your client-side solution, as well as for any other SharePoint Framework solution running in your tenant, to have those permissions to consume the Microsoft Graph. So that said, as usual, let me move to the demo environment and let me show you how to play with it in practice. So let's start having a look at the final solution. Here we have a client-side web part which we can use to search for user in Azure Active Directory. I search for myself, for example, and here I am. I can search for all of the users that I have in my tenant, and I'm using in the backend the Graph API provided for leveraging the lists of users in Graph. So I can make a request, a GET request for users, and I can provide through the query string a bunch of Open Data Protocol querying parameters like filtering, sorting, and stuff like that. In order to be able to use this API from a permission perspective with a delegated token, I need any of these permissions. So for example, users.readbasic.all or user.readall or any of the other permissions that you see here. So calling this API from the SharePoint Framework means that using a SharePoint Framework 1.6 solution, you will have to import the MS Graph client type from @Microsoft SP/HTTP. And when you want to use that type, you will simply need to ask to the context of the client-side web part or of the client-side extension that you are developing to give you the MS Graph client factory object, which is a factory which will give you back an SDK, Graph SDK client through the get client asynchronous method. And that's why I'm using the async await pattern to get back the MS Graph client instance. Once you have that instance, you will simply need to use the Fluent API. So first of all, you declare what is the API you want to consume. Then if you want to use any open data filtering or selection option, you can say .select and provide the fields that you want to select, or .filter to make filtering, or .order by to make ordering on the output result of the query, and so on and so forth. Once you have done that, you will get back a JSON response, which can be read into a fully typed type, as I'm doing right here. In fact, I have an iUser's response type, which will have a value property, which is an array of iUser types, where every single iUser is made of a display name, of a mail, and of a user principal. So by calling this Fluent API and by getting back the result in a fully typed object, I can simply bind that object into the UI. As I told you, to make it possible to being able to call the Graph API using the Graph SDK client, I also need to declare in the package solution JSON file of my solution that I need that I have a web API permission request, and in particular I will have to declare that I want to target a specific resource, which is now the micrograph in my example, and the scope, which will be in my case user.read.all, to being able to read all of the users in my tenant. Once I've done that, from a web browser perspective, in the app catalog of my SharePoint Online tenant, I will have to drag and drop the solutions, the sppkg file in the app catalog. Right now, I'm just overwriting the one already existing. But once you do that, in the admin center, in the new admin center of SharePoint Online, in the API management page, you will find a list of permissions. Some of them will be pending, some of them will be approved. And for example, here you can see that there is the pending approval request that I made in my package solution JSON file, and I can of course select it and approve it. In my scenario, it is already approved, and right now in the current release of SPO, you see multiple items of the same time because they are working on it. They are going to fix this small issue in the UI of the admin center. So you approve it and you are done. Keep in mind that the approval will be at tenant level, so you are not approving the permission for your specific solution, but you are approving the permission for any SharePoint Framework solution running in this tenant. You can approve, you can also reject a permission if you like, so you can remove access if you already provided access to an API and you want to remove it later on. And that's it. From a developer perspective, you are able to consume the micrograph using SharePoint Framework in a really smooth way. Enjoy! Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.